In the year 2000, the game Mobile Suit Gundam Lost War Chronicles was released on PlayStation 2. Following in the wake of Gundam 8th MS Team, which came out in 1996, this game focuses on another small group of soldiers also using ground-type mobile suits. But unfortunately, I personally haven't played the game yet because it was never released in English, so instead we're going to talk about the 2-volume manga adaptation that came out in the year 2002. Lost War Chronicles tracks a small group of soldiers on both sides of the war, the 3rd Platoon, or Delta Team of the Earth Federation, and the Principality of Zeon's Foreign Legion. The two cross paths repeatedly in multiple battles before the manga ends. The story begins with an explanation that the Earth Federation has finally begun producing mobile suits of its own, and that Operation Odessa, the Federation's next major offensive strike against Zeon's mining bases in Europe, is only a short time away. The 3rd Platoon is entrusted with a gun tank, one of the Federation's early prototype mobile suits, part of V Project. They also receive a new teammate and operator, named Noel Anderson. Oddly enough, Noel Anderson was also in the game Gundam Encounters in Space as the operator for the Federation's pilot creation missions. Delta Team receives intel that their target, a Zeon base nearby, has received reinforcements, as well as the information that the enemy mobile suits are especially equipped for underwater combat. The commander of Delta Team, Matt Healy, decides to use this to his advantage. They engage the enemy and lure the Zeon mobile suits into a large lake. While Matt and Delta 3, a soldier named Anish Lothman, act as a decoy, Delta 2, Larry Radley, uses the gun tank to snipe from long range. However, his shot misses the last standing goof. Lieutenant Matt manages to parry the sneak attack, and in a rather cool display, he uses the ground-type gem shield to knock the goof's head clean off. After the battle, Noel asks why he didn't completely destroy the mobile suit, and he states that he just simply doesn't like killing people, even if it's an enemy. So basically we get another Shiro Omada from 8th MS Team, minus the Romeo and Juliet relationship with the Zeon soldier. It turns out that the Foreign Legion was spying on the 3rd Platoon, and we meet our Zeon cast. The leader, Ken Betterstadt, looks a little bit like Onivo Gato from Gundam 0083. At least in the black and white of the manga pages. Also, apparently they can't decide if his actual hair color is black or brown. The other two members are Jake Guns, who always wears a pilot suit, and Garsky Xenobave, whose name is incorrectly spelled Gasky in Volume 2. The next chapter begins with the Foreign Legion attacking the Federation's land-based battleship known as a Big Tray. They destroy the bridge and are about to disable the engines when they're called to retreat by their base. The 3rd Platoon is called in to defend the Big Tray, with all 3 pilots using ground-type gems this time. It turns out that Ken's unit was called to retreat by another lieutenant who has orders from the Zeon homeland. This guy's never actually given a name, but he belittles the Foreign Legion as they're not legitimate citizens of Side 3 and are basically guns for hire. We then meet Yuki Nakasato, who also appeared in Gundam Encounters in Space, but as the Zeon mission mode operator instead. The nameless lieutenant explains that he ordered the retreat so that he could capture the Big Tray using Zeon's newest mobile suit, the Dom. Entirely for propaganda purposes, of course. Ken is then introduced to May Collin, who is the chief mechanic for this unit. As the Dom and the two goofs head for the Big Tray, Matt's team prepares to engage them. Anish's gem is badly damaged by the Dom's giant bazooka before Matt manages to destroy the weapon with his beam saber. The Dom pilot answers by slashing off his gem's left forearm, gloating about superior technology, even though technically a Dom's heat saber is inferior to a Federation beam saber. With some careful timing, Noel uses the Big Tray's giant cannon to blow off the Dom's legs, while Anish returns to the fight and defeats the other goof. It seems all is well as the Foreign Legion shows up. While Garsky and Jake distract Matt, Ken commandeers a damaged Dodai 2 hovercraft, rescuing May in the process, and he proceeds to ram it into the side of the Big Tray, severely damaging the ship and injuring Noel. Not wanting to let the Dom be captured by the Federation, May uses a remote control to detonate it, with the Lieutenant still inside. Chapter 3 starts with the Medea Squadron, led by popular Gundam character Matilda Ajan. She's on her way to deliver important cargo to White Base, while the 3rd Platoon provides cover, with Matt now armed with a new ground-type Gundam instead of a gem. However, despite this upgrade, the 3rd Platoon encounters a new threat, the mobile armor Adzam. It deflects Larry's 180mm cannon with no difficulties, then proceeds to completely incapacitate Anish's gem with the Adzam leader, which traps the target inside an electromagnetic cage. In a bold move to rescue Anish, Matt rushes the Adzam, and after throwing a Zaku to destroy another energy cage, he finds an opening and then shoots the Adzam while the leader hatches opening, causing the mobile armor to crash on top of both him and Anish. However, Matt's Gundam survived despite being badly damaged, and he literally drags Anish's gem out of the flames. Meanwhile, the Foreign Legion is involved in the Battle of Odessa, and they hold the line long enough for Captain Mukube to escape back into space. And that's the end of Volume 1. I do like how so far that they're helping expand the timeline of the one-year war just a little bit, fleshing it out a little bit more, and telling us that there were more important characters than the ones that were just on the White Base. Volume 2 picks up with a group of mass-produced model gems who are in the middle of a training exercise. The 3rd Platoon has been tasked with training the new recruits in the newly captured Odessa base. Meanwhile, Matt is concerned about the repairs to his Gundam. The mechanic, Annie Brevig, tells him that they're short on parts, so most of their repairs are slow going, and she suggests using a Zaku shoulder pad to replace the one missing on the Gundam, much to Matt's disapproval. Annie's been there the whole time, but I haven't mentioned her much simply because in the grand scheme of things, she doesn't play as big of a role as the other characters. For the most part, besides repairing the mobile suits off-screen, her biggest role is being Noel's buddy and helping from the communications room. Noel arrives to deliver orders from HQ, declaring that training for the rookies will be cut short and that the next mission will be live combat. Checking back in with the Foreign Legion, they're talking about retrieving something that landed back in Odessa after the Federation conquered it, saying that it would give them a boost. During this time, we see that Ken can't help but see his daughter through May, and his fatherly instincts start to come out to protect her. We learn a nice piece of trivia that May's family is actually part of the Daikun faction, a group of people loyal to the ideals of Zeon Zoom Daikun rather than the Zabi family. Not too relevant, but establishes why a teenage civilian would be on the front lines like this. Delta Team finds an HLV, which is basically a small transport for people in mobile suits used for entering and leaving the Earth's atmosphere. Matt is cautious of it, fearing it might be a booby trap since it was dropped after Odessa fell. While they wait around, Anish voices his displeasure with the mass model Jim, saying he preferred the ground-type mobile suit. And then, they're suddenly attacked by the Foreign Legion. The rookies make easy targets as they head for the HLV. As Ken challenges the Gundam, Matt realizes by his movement patterns that they've met before, when the big tray was destroyed. Ken manages to pin Matt's Gundam to the side of the HLV before he abandons his Zaku to board the capsule itself. It opens up, revealing a new model mobile suit, the Gelgoog, which was one of Zeon's most powerful mobile suits during the One-Year War, as it was intended to be as strong as the original Gundam, even being armed with beam weaponry. Ken calls for a ceasefire, threatening to kill one of the rookies while his Jim is disabled if he's not allowed to escape. While Matt knows the danger of this new weapon, Ken says that he didn't retrieve it to kill people, but to obtain surer means of survival for his team. This is where Matt's pacifism gets the better of him, and he allows Ken to leave, but his entire team does make it back alive. This doesn't sit well with the War Council, as the higher-ups imprison Matt for 3 days for letting the new mobile suit escape. The penalty would have been worse if the circumstances weren't so dire. The next chapter begins at Federation HQ in Jaburo, or Jabrao, or however the flip you're supposed to pronounce it. Add in some more Gundam fan service by having a cameo appearance from Lieutenant Woody from the original Gundam series, as well as Ford Romfellow and Luce Castle from the Thoroughbred. Then we get the next major Earth-based battle of the war, the Jaburo drop operation, and there are some nice throwbacks here. Like this one shot of Azaku's weapon getting shot out of his hands, and a goof carrying a bazooka. Delta Team is assigned to defend the base, with Larry being given a Jim Sniper 2 with a long-range beam rifle, and Anish getting Larry's ground-type Jim. As Matt finds his mind wandering, Noel informs him that Ken would likely not be there, since his unit was last seen heading east of Odessa after retrieving the Gelgoog. Speaking of, the Foreign Legion was ambushed by Fedi mobile suits, and most of their equipment was damaged, including Jake's Zaku. Jake survived with minimal injuries, however, Yuki wasn't so lucky. With her dying breath, Yuki tells the team of an HLV on the Asian front that can be used to get them back into space. With the death of his friend, Ken's sense of bloodlust grows, claiming that Yuki's blood will cost the lives of every single Federation soldier. Back at Jaburo, Delta Team is mopping up any remaining Zeons. Matt gives the order to call for surrender before destroying them, which in this scenario doesn't seem like a terrible idea, since they have no way back. Matt encounters Azaku and blows off his left arm and its head, but it still doesn't stand down. He orders Larry not to use his beam rifle since it would kill the pilot. The Zaku opens fire and Anish destroys it, not wanting to risk the lives of his team members. They then realize that Larry has gone silent, and to their dismay, the cockpit of his Jim Sniper had been shot. Anish grows enraged, while Matt can do nothing but stare at the carnage he inadvertently caused. And our final chapter begins with the Federation fleet launching into space. We're informed that Annie was transferred out of the 3rd Platoon and onto the Pegasus-class ship, the Thoroughbred. The 3rd Platoon's mission is to destroy the new enemy mobile suit, and Matt still insists that if they can avoid killing, they should, much to Anish's disgust. At the target area, the Baikonur spaceport, May and Jake are told that they'll be leaving in the HLV that's being launched, while the rest of the Foreign Legion will remain behind on Earth. Ken and Garsky hold off the approaching Federation mobile suits as the HLV prepares to launch. Anish, now piloting Larry's Jim Sniper, is told again by Matt to try to not kill the enemy. When Anish questions if Matt would rather the enemy survive than his own soldiers, Ken shows up and he and Matt engage in a duel. Anish retrieves the long beam rifle and attempts to shoot down the HLV as it blasts off. Matt uses himself as a shield to prevent Anish from firing, telling his wingman that hatred only leads to more hatred. Ken is moved by Matt's heroic actions and calls off the fight, but he swears that the two of them will meet again someday. The manga ends with the HLV safely making it to space and May crying because she had to leave her dear friends behind on the battlefield. While this manga certainly is an enjoyable read, in some ways it's kind of like a poor man's version of the 8th MS team, and sometimes the writing just doesn't make a lot of sense. I can't compare it to the game because, again, I haven't played it, and it isn't in English, so I don't know much of what the source material was like, but you do see a lot of influence from the Gundam 8th MS team, and I do mean more than just the ground-type mobile suits. Matt is like Shiro in that he doesn't want to kill unless he has to, but unlike Shiro, Matt's pacifism got one of his men killed, and Shiro would actually pull the trigger when people's lives were on the line. Anish is a lot like Karen because he's the cocky, sarcastic, and highly strung character of the group. Noel is a lot like Mikkel because they're both rather meek and often have outbursts if they don't agree with or understand the situation, and Larry is similar to Sanders, both being that they're mostly the strong silent type who prefers long-range weapons. Annie doesn't really have a direct counterpart, so while she's one of the most unimportant characters in the grand scheme of things, she's also one of the most unique. It's also similar to the 8th MS team in how they handle damaged mobile suits. Both Matt and Shiro's Gundams get nearly destroyed and Matt's is hastily repaired with spare parts, while Karen's Gundam lost his head and they had to replace it with a gym head. And on top of that, because they refused to kill the enemy when they had the opportunity, both Matt and Shiro faced a trial at the hands of a war council. However, on a more positive note, we get a good sense of characters mirroring each other here. Even though it's not flat out stated, for the most part, Ken apparently didn't try to kill everyone either, at least until Yuki died. During the attack on the big tray, he called for the crew to abandon the ship, saying that they only wanted to secure the equipment. Likewise, when they wanted to secure the HLV, none of their attacks were meant to kill. They just destroyed the heads of 2 of the gems, and the arms and legs on 2 of the others. Then, Ken used the fact that all the rookies were still alive as bargaining chips to escape. Also, him saying that he's not trying to kill anyone, but to ensure better means of survival, this lets us see the similarities between the protagonists on both sides, and when both of them lose a comrade, they go about it completely differently, creating a huge contrast between them. Ken is filled with rage, while Matt, for the most part, doesn't really change that much. I think that is my biggest gripe with this manga. Matt Healy is just too idealistic, and he refuses to change his stance on things even after losing a dear friend because of his pacifism. But there are other Gundam works that are hard to find, and some of them weren't officially released in English, so just for the run of the Lost War Chronicles manga, this leaves on something of a dissatisfying tone, with not much being resolved. Anish is still angry at Zeon for killing Larry, Ken is still angry at the Federation for killing Yuki, and Matt is still clinging to his idealistic pacifism. I do plan to read some of these works later so that I can find out what became of these characters, because honestly, I'm interested in seeing where it goes from here. This has been Blade Cross EXE, part of Flashing Blades Productions, with another Gogglehead review. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace out.